Dr. Summers, as you know, the flip side of austerity is growth. And you've had a lot of important papers and comments over the years with respect to consumer demand, and particularly consumer demand in our economy. And as you know, and have written, consumers are responsible for about 70% of the economic activity now in our country. And you look at the numbers that we saw last month, which were by and large pretty encouraging. You know, housing starts, the employment numbers, but one that was a little troubling was that question of the consumer being, again, a little bit tentative in terms of their spending. One area where we made some bipartisan progress on has been in the tax reform area as part of the legislation that I've had over the years with Senator Gregg and Senator Coates in particular. We've had bipartisan support for approaches that could really help us grow the economy by stimulating demand, particularly by tripling the standard deduction for middle-class people, so that in effect, if you had $60,000 in annual income, we'd put $30,000 off limits from the taxation side, and so middle-class people would get some serious tax relief, and we've been able to offer that in a bipartisan way. Could you spend a minute or two outlining some of the other areas where you think it might be possible, as we kind of compare austerity and the growth that you've talked about, which is a view I happen to share strongly. What are other possibilities that we ought to be looking at in order to particularly bring that middle-class person back into the economy, buying the goods and services that, as we know in America, lift a lot of boats?
Senator Wyden, I think there is a legitimate question that does have to be faced, which is, given the increased pressures that will come on the federal budget, increased pressures that will come because of an aging society, increased pressures that will come because, whatever the merits of any past debate, we have accumulated more debt, increased pressures that will come because the relative price of many of the things that government buys, I think, for example, of health care and higher education, has increased very substantially relative to the price of other things in the economy. I think of a television set or a personal computer. And so for all those reasons, we're going to face a substantial pressure on the scale of the federal budget. And I'm not sure that we can afford, as a country, large-scale tax cutting, whether it is oriented to the middle class or whether it's oriented to some other group. And so I very much believe that tax reform has substantial potential, but I believe that the best tax reform would be either revenue neutral or ideally would provide for some revenue increases.
The striking part about it, Dr. Summers, because we've had it scored, the initial bill has been scored as revenue neutral. What you do, though, is when you eliminate some of those special interest breaks and come back to target to the middle-class people, the fact that we get them back into the economy, buying the goods and services, remodel jobs and the like, that's what...
I think if we're successful in identifying a range of special interest provisions and subsidies that should be scaled back, then there is a question as to what to do. And I think that an attractive part of the strategy could be yours of supporting the middle-class families through reductions in the standard deduction. Alternative approaches, which I think also have merit, would involve reducing marginal tax rates, which might also have incentive effects. But I very much share your view that part of propelling consumer demand here is going to be making sure that anything we do is fair and equitable, in the sense of having its benefits concentrated on the middle class, where the propensity to spend is likely to be greatest.
No, your point is very well taken, and obviously in this kind of fiscal climate, you can't just promise and promise some more and not have a revenue source. And that has been the point of what a number of conservative Republicans have worked on with me over the last 5 years. And I think what I'd like to do, because your writing and your recent work has been so helpful on this point, is why don't we hold the record open? And I'd like to get a sense, because I thought that tax reform was a possibility, well-targeted transportation initiatives. As you know, we had the Build America Bonds program that came out of the Finance Committee. You all worked with us on that for many, many months. I just like to hold the record, open.
I will submit something in writing with a longer list of growth-promoting programs.
Very, very good. As per Senator Murray, we're now adjourned. And
Good.
I think Senator Sessions, I was not here for the previous discussions. Senator Murray indicated that we are adjourned. I'm going to stick around and visit with you privately. Thank you.
Very good. All right. Thank you.